Well, hello, truth seekers, doom scrollers, and whatever we're calling people who still think TikTok is a news source. I'm Jordan Klepper, and welcome back to Klepper's Corner, the show where we take all the news that's too depressing to read and cram it into 8 minutes of barely contained sarcasm and loosely veiled existential dread. Now, July 24th, 2025, a day that'll go down in history as the moment everyone collectively said, you know what, let's just try turning it off and on again. Because from war zones to water shortages, from economic melodramas to political faceplants, the world today looks like someone accidentally hit shuffle on the apocalypse playlist. So grab your emotional support animal, or if you're Donald Trump, your emotional support Diet Coke. Because it's time for a global tour of chaos with a generous dollop of satire. Segment 1. Thai-Cambodian clash, welcome to borderline warfare. Let's start in Southeast Asia, where Thailand and Cambodia have officially upgraded their centuries-old temple beef to hold my rocket launcher levels. The latest battleground, Prasat Tamon Tam, a sacred site which now doubles as Southeast Asia's most spiritually charged demolition derby. On July 24th, deadly clashes erupted with everything from BM-21 rockets to F-16 fighter jets. That's right, what started as a please respect our border spat has morphed into a full-scale Michael Bay production. Thailand says Cambodia started it with a drone and some light shelling. Cambodia says Thailand carpet-bombed a road and opened fire like it was Call of Duty Ancient Temple Edition. Thailand even sealed the border and told its citizens in Cambodia to come home, presumably on foot, since flights aren't exactly taking off in a war zone. Meanwhile, Cambodia started evacuating teachers and students because nothing screams back to school like artillery shells. Both countries have now recalled diplomats, paused all talks, and are currently locked in a classic diplomatic standoff. We won't talk to you until you stop hitting us. We'll stop hitting you when you admit it was your fault. Your mom. Classic geopolitics. China is deeply concerned, which is diplomatic speak for please don't ruin our Belt and Road initiative, and Malaysia's prime minister has offered to mediate. A noble move that's sure to be as effective as a ceasefire called via group chat. This could destabilize the whole region. And by region, I mean trade, civilians, and monks who just wanted to practice nonviolence somewhere that didn't include long-range artillery. Segment 2. Gaza's famine when ceasefires come with a side of starvation. Let's move to Gaza, where ceasefire talks are technically ongoing, but so is the famine. It's the kind of situation where everyone says they're delivering aid, and yet somehow people are still dying of hunger. Israel says over 800 trucks of aid are waiting to be picked up. The UN says people approaching those trucks are getting shot at. Somewhere in between is the truth, buried under bureaucracy, bullets, and maybe 12 walls of red tape. 2 more people died of famine in the past 24 hours, bringing the total to 113. That's not just a humanitarian crisis, that's a moral failure on repeat. Hamas has responded to a new ceasefire deal. Israel is examining it, which is diplomatic code for, we'll get back to you after we consult with every member of our 5-party coalition, the Supreme Court, and whoever's still watching C-SPAN. Meanwhile, Brazil, yes, Brazil, just signed on to South Africa's genocide case against Israel at the International Court of Justice. That means international pressure isn't just growing, it's lawyered up. So now it's less diplomatic pressure and more brace yourself, here comes The Hague. And in a subplot that could only happen in 2025, an Irish-language rap group called Kneecap has been banned from Hungary because of their support for Palestine. That's right, foreign policy now includes banning bilingual hip-hop. The world where ceasefires are rare, starvation is routine, and banning rappers is apparently a diplomatic tool. Segment 3, Russia and Ukraine, buffer zones and buffering aid. Russia launched 450 drones and missiles at Ukraine. That's not a military strategy, that's a Black Friday deal on chaos. It hit everything from a subway station to a kindergarten. And all this happened just hours before NATO defense chiefs met to say, we're totally going to send more missiles soon, we swear. Ukraine's defense minister basically stood up and said, help us, Donald Trump, you're our only hope, which is a sentence that should never appear in any Star Wars reboot or in real life. Trump has launched a 50-day drive to arm Ukraine while also giving Moscow a 50-day deadline to agree to peace, because nothing motivates peace like or else. Germany is offering Patriot missiles. Switzerland is reprioritizing theirs, and the U.S. is repackaging weapons like it's Christmas in July, if your idea of Christmas involves surface-to-air missiles and defense contractor stock tips. Meanwhile, Putin has made it clear he wants buffer zones. And if history has taught us anything, it's that when Russia says buffer, what they really mean is mine now. Peace talks in Istanbul lasted 40 minutes, which, for a conflict this brutal, is less of a negotiation and more of a coffee break. But hey, over 1,000 Ukrainian prisoners were exchanged, so, silver lining in a mushroom cloud. This war isn't ending soon, and the question isn't whether the West is supporting Ukraine. It's whether that support will arrive before another 450 drones do. Segment 4, Trump's trade tango, tariff if you dare. July 24th saw Trump unveiling new trade deals, or more accurately, selectively dialing tariffs down from economic blender to just slightly mangled. Japan got a break, a 15% tariff instead of the threatened 25%, which made Toyota and Honda stock go vroom vroom in the Tokyo markets. The Philippines and Indonesia also got slightly gentler treatment, with their new tariff rates landing just under 20%. That's right. Nothing says friendship like charging you 19% to talk to me. Meanwhile, other countries were treated to a game of diplomatic Russian roulette. South Korea, Laos, Cambodia, Serbia all got letters from Trump that basically said, cut a deal or get wrecked. Negotiations with China remain a slow-motion arm wrestle. There's an August 12th deadline, which will probably be extended because even Trump knows that fighting China during an election year is like juggling chainsaws while covered in honey at a bear convention. The global result? Markets are jittery, companies are scrambling, and economists are standing around screaming, we told you this would happen. But don't worry. Trump says he might go to China to personally stabilize things, which is a little like asking a raccoon to fix your plumbing. Segment 5, EU-China Summit, diplomacy with a side of passive aggression. In Beijing, the EU and China held a summit that celebrated 50 years of diplomatic relations and 50 minutes of awkward silence. Officially, the summit was about rebalancing ties. Unofficially, it was a polite knife fight over trade, Ukraine, and who's ruining the planet faster. The EU is not thrilled that China won't condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Meanwhile, China is very upset that the EU has tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles, a clear attack on China's plan to turn the entire planet into one big Tesla parking lot. The EU accused China of unfair industrial practices, and China responded by launching investigations into cognac, cheese, and European beef. Yes, this is what superpowers do now, weaponize charcuterie. And in case that wasn't tense enough, the summit had to be moved to Beijing because Xi Jinping didn't want to go to Brussels. Apparently, even dictators hate layovers. There was talk of releasing a short statement on climate change. That's right, after hours of talks and decades of disagreements, the grand diplomatic achievement was maybe agreeing that the planet is warm. We're winning, folks. Segment 6, India and the UK finally tied the knot. After nearly 3 years of will they or won't they, India and the UK finally signed a free trade agreement. And yes, it only took a global pandemic, 2 prime ministers, and 47 Zoom calls where no one remembered to unmute. The UK expects a multi-billion-dollar boost in exports. India gets expanded access to the British market and probably a few free cricket lessons thrown in. It's a win-win and a perfect contrast to the EU-China disaster. It's like watching one couple get engaged at the same time another couple argues about whose cheese caused a trade war. Meanwhile, the EU is also cozying up to Japan. The takeaway here? Countries are realizing that if they want stability, it's time to diversify their economic relationships. Or as Trump would put it, make trade great again, but only with people who buy my steaks. Segment 7. Iran's heat wave. Hell is now available in Celsius. Iran is so hot right now, and not in a good way. On July 24th, the country declared a national holiday just so people could stop using water and electricity. Because nothing screams prosperity like begging your citizens to stay home and sweat quietly. Tehran hit 105 degrees Fahrenheit, but the town of Shabankara broke the year's record with a Dante-approved 127. That's not weather. That's atmospheric assault. Reservoirs are at their lowest in a century. Some neighborhoods in Tehran are going without water for 12 hours at a time, which is great if you're into thirst as a lifestyle. The president himself admitted the crisis is worse than anyone's saying, which is code for we really, really screwed this up. And remember, this isn't just nature. In April, there were already farmer protests over water being diverted from agriculture to industry. That's right, climate change met corruption and said, let's throw a riot. This is a preview of climate-induced instability. When your crops die, your pipes run dry, and your leaders say, we're totally working on it, you know it's going to be a long, hot, angry summer. Segment 8. Russian plane crash. Safety? We hardly knew ye. In Russia, tragedy struck when a passenger plane crashed near the Chinese border. 49 people were on board. So far, no confirmed survivors. The aircraft was an AN-24, which is basically a flying antique that makes the Wright brothers' plane look modern. Oh, and it had failed security checks right before it disappeared from radar. Because apparently Russia now operates on the honor system for aviation safety. Smoke, debris, and government excuses are all we've got right now. But this will raise serious questions about oversight, aging aircraft, and why anyone's still flying Cold War museum pieces through mountains. Spoiler alert, it's cheaper. Until it isn't. Segment 9. Trump's inbox of secrets and a side of Epstein. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth may have been a little too generous with the group chat. According to reports, his signal messages about military strikes in Yemen were based on a classified email marked secret and no foreign access. Translation, if it had a clearance level any higher, it could have run for office in Florida. This contradicts the administration's claims that no classified information was shared, which is a fancy way of saying we totally did that, but please forget we said the opposite on Fox and Friends. The Pentagon's watchdog now has the receipts. So if you see officials suddenly deleting Signal like it's TikTok during a congressional hearing, you know why. Meanwhile, the Jeffrey Epstein files just won't die, unlike, Jeffrey Epstein, who definitely died, maybe, allegedly. Depends which Reddit thread you read. Apparently, Trump's name appears multiple times. Attorney General Pam Bondi found this after reviewing what she called a truckload of documents, which raises a new question. What kind of truck? U-Haul? Dump truck? Ice cream van? The White House called this fake news. Of course they did. That's their new auto reply to everything, including subpoenas and maybe fire alarms. Segment 10. Columbia pays up, PEPFAR caught in limbo, and Head Start gets stiffed. Columbia University agreed to pay $200 million to the federal government over anti-Semitism complaint mismanagement. They'll also pay $21 million to settle with the EEOC. Moral of the story? Even Ivy Leagues can't out-argue federal audits. Meanwhile, PEPFAR, the Global AIDS Relief Program, got a temporary $400 million lifeline from Congress. But behind the scenes, the State Department is drafting plans to shut it down and turn it into a disease detection service that also sells U.S. products. Yes, America's new slogan for foreign aid might as well be, we'd like to help, but have you considered our upgraded subscription plan? Oh, and in case you were feeling too hopeful, the Trump administration has again been found in violation of the Impoundment Act. This time, they withheld funding from Head Start. Yes, preschoolers, they stiffed preschoolers. That's like stealing crayons from a blindfolded toddler and saying, budget cuts. Segment 11. January 6 Redux and the LaMonica McIver Show. Congress is doing what Congress does best, relitigating the past while ignoring the present. House Republicans want to boot LaMonica McIver from the Homeland Security Committee after her indictment for interfering with ICE officers. Meanwhile, they're launching a new January 6 subcommittee because apparently we didn't do the sequel properly the first time. This one's led by Barry Loudermilk, and he says it'll focus on security failures and information the last committee didn't disclose. Translation, we're bringing back the reboot. New cast, same plot holes. Segment 12, Bangladesh's tape-recorded horror show. And in Bangladesh, things have gone full Black Mirror. Secret recordings reveal that former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina allegedly ordered lethal force against student protesters in 2024. Her words, use lethal weapons, shoot wherever you find them. Doctors have come forward. Bullet wounds, pressure to falsify autopsies, families coerced into smiling for state TV while grieving their dead kids. This isn't governance. It's a dictatorship with better production values.